What is your "this person has no idea how the real world works" moment? Was working in an office. Mostly women. Our desks were situated so about 7 of us could chat while we worked. It was around Christmas time. And the ladies with kids were talking about when their kids learned that Santa wasn't real. And one of the girls chimed in, I believe she was around 20 years old, and said, "You mean there really isn't a Santa like an elf?" We all went completely silent. Until finally, another lady asked her, "You're joking, right?" She wasn't joking. When I was staying in uni housing, one of the girls on my floor asked when the maid would come to get her laundry. I think I stared at her for a good 30s before realizing she was serious. Some people just have a different standard of normal. In high school, someone posted a listing on the internet to sell something. I can't recall what it was. They listed the price they were asking, a lower price they would consider, and a lowest price they would go absolutely no lower than. I did hope she had a friendly, charitable buyer approach her with the higher asking price. But it's not really the way the world works. A good lesson to learn in high school, I suppose. I had a friend who dropped their phone in a puddle and destroyed it. Then decided that she wouldn't pay the rest of the contract for it because she couldn't use it. Because that's how contracts work. Right? This was about 4 years ago, and a friend of mine who lives in a city was complaining about how expensive coffee was now that he was no longer getting a commission at his job. He was used to making almost $100K a year and he grew up pretty spoiled. So when they dropped him to hourly and he went to making $23 an hour, he had to do things like getting a roommate in his fancy downtown loft to help with the bills. But I had to set up the listing because he didn't know how to use Craigslist and how other websites worked. Well, later, I bought him a regular coffee maker, coffee filters and 2 different types of coffee to help him save money and for a Christmas gift. I came to visit him about a month later and he still hadn't touched the coffee maker. I asked him why he hasn't used it and he exclaimed he didn't know how to work it. I asked him if he was serious because what kind of 50-year-old man can't figure out a coffee maker, and he just continued to buy Starbucks every day instead. It finally got to a point he couldn't afford Starbucks and he called me up on the phone to ask me, "How do you make the coffee maker work?" I gave him very simple directions, like you put a new filter in each time and you put a scoop or 2 of coffee depending if you want it stronger, and it took him about an hour to make his first cup. About 30 minutes later he calls me to complain that it doesn't taste as good as Starbucks and that he must be doing it wrong, and for me to come over and help him make the coffee and show him. I asked him what kind of coffee he gets at Starbucks and he said it was always a caramel macchiato. I told him to try adding milk and sugar and call me back later. I just don't know how someone could have gone 50 years in their life without coming across a coffee maker. On the plus side, he uses the coffee maker every day now and has been learning how to budget by doing things like dropping the weekly maid service and cleaning up after himself. A roommate didn't want my boyfriend over between 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. But there was really no other time that fit with both of our schedules. I had college classes. He had work and college classes. And we all had our own rooms, so I didn't think she cared with both of our doors closed. BF and I were seeing each other about twice a week due to distance. And carefully following the rules set out in the roommate agreement. While mediating this, someone asked how much time she thought we should be spending together. She answered, once a week for 1 or 2 hours. 2 female friends wanted to go backpacking in the Middle East. Saving money by hitchhiking. I don't need to study. When I'm older I am going to be a YouTuber and I'll win a lot of money. This was said by a girl who was expelled from school to the ethics teacher. I worked in a grocery store with a kid who decided that the rule against using your cell phone on the clock didn't apply to him. When the department manager yelled at him for using his phone one day, he ranted to me, "She's not allowed to tell me not to use my phone. Only the store manager can. He can fire me if he wants. The union will just get my job back. And if they don't, I'll go on unemployment." For context, it was super rare for our union to reverse a firing. I saw it happen twice out of dozens of firings in 4 years. He did eventually get fired because he got caught working off the clock so his girlfriend could go home earlier. And cursing out the manager who told him to stop. I need to preface this with saying the woman in question is a really good person. She's easy to get along with. Down to earth and just has a real benevolent personality. The problem is, her mother did way too much for her and she did it for way too long. The way she dressed was odd peculiar unique absolutely ridiculous. She had no clue about fashion, color combos, really anything. Turns out, until she moved out of her mother's house as 22 years old, she had never picked out her own clothes. Literally every day, her mother would pick out her clothes, iron them or put them in the dryer for a few minutes so they were warm and comfy. 22 years old and she had never independently dressed herself. Food. Not only did she not know how to cook anything, she didn't know how to use a knife and fork. She had literally, and I mean literally, had never had a plate of food with something that would need to be cut meat. Lasagna, enchiladas, etc. that wasn't already cut into bite-sized pieces. Clean. She had never cleaned anything in her life. She didn't know how to wash dishes, wipe down a counter, sweep, mop or vacuum. Two things that were memorable when she bought a new set of dishes because the old ones got ruined, and when she asked a grocery store clerk where the elbow grease was. A mutual friend instructed her on cleaning soap, hot water and elbow grease. I really have to give her credit. At 22 years old, she ran away and moved out of her mother's house. Though she was hopelessly unprepared for the real world, she kept on trying. She never had a bitter word or bad thought to anyone. She genuinely asked for help often, was appreciative when she got it. When I first met her, I was dubious about being friends with her. I figured sooner or later the spoiled brat attitude that usually accompanies a princess like her is going to show. I've known her for 7 years now and it hasn't shown up yet. I had a student this year who was so academically, really full of herself and just generally unpleasant to be around. She found out that she was declined from a college she applied to and said that it had to be a mistake. It was a pretty prestigious school. I could guess that more kids get denied than admitted. But I asked her why she thought it was a mistake. I used to work admissions a little, so I thought I might be able to help shed some light on the process. Ease her mind a bit. She told me, my mom wrote a letter of recommendation. I'm supposed to get in wherever I apply. That's the way it is. She's 18. I'm not going to touch her entitlement with a 10-foot pole. When my sister had 2 small children, we were talking about when they grow up. Having experience raising my own 3 children, I said something like, well, you can only do the best you can in raising them and hope that they turn out okay. She said, oh, my kids are going to graduate college and make something of themselves. Both got knocked up right out of high school and neither attended any higher education. When I was 17, the window cleaner was at the house doing the downstairs windows. I decided it was safe to have a because I was upstairs. And he can't reach upstairs. I forgot ladders. My friend got his first job last year. This idiot thought when you got a job they would just pay you automatically without showing up. He got the job, then proceeded to never show up. He called the place he got his job at a few weeks later asking how he would be paid. They informed him he had already been replaced and would not be paid for doing no work. I had to explain how a job worked to him after he asked me why he didn't get paid. Why do you need a job? Your dad makes decent money. Just take his credit card and buy what you want. He won't find out. A high school acquaintance. My family owned a restaurant for a few years. We had this dishwasher who was 18 and finishing up high school. One day at 3:30 p.m. he calls in for his 4 o'clock shift. My mom asks why and turns out he wanted to go to an NBA game that night and had just decided would have been okay if he gave us an advanced notice. My mom said no, and if you don't show up you won't have a job anymore. Guy doesn't show up, but comes in the next day and is shocked when we tell him that he's been fired and replaced. The kicker is the kid's dad called and was mad that we fired him. He didn't think it was a big deal. So many stories like this one. A guy thinks he can just tell fictional stories about hookups he never did with a lot of women and how all women chase after him. He has a dream job as an F-18 pilot and bomb the entire country of Turkey cause Turks are bad. I remember one day he came up to me after summer break and the conversation went like this. Him. Hey mitochondria_man, guess who I was in a relationship with? An American model who's 3 years older than me. Me. Oh cool, got any pictures? Him. No, I deleted them all cause I caught her cheating with me yesterday. Mind, it was the first day of school and we had no contact during the break. Which lasts about 3 months here. Me. What's her name then? Him. That's legit exactly what he told me. I got so angry I deleted her contact. Blocked her social media and forgot her name out of the rage. He has no idea how life works. Maybe he'll realize it one day.